Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Beyond Boardroom Business. I'm your host, Coach Stephanie, and tonight is going to be a special episode. So make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you bring your friends and family and share this episode because tonight I have an amazing person. And without further ado, let's bring on the Kingdom Watchman. Good evening, sir. How are you this evening?
Hey, how you doing, Stephanie?
I am feeling fabulous. Thank you for asking. So, can you tell us who is the Kingdom Watchman?
The Kingdom Watchman. So I own a security company called Watchman Security Safety Advocates, and the Kingdom Watchman was birthed out of me being frustrated at a moment with God. I hit a season in my life, and that particular day, I threw the Bible into the dumpster. I should be saying this, but I threw it in the dumpster, and then I feel convicted, so I hopped back in the dumpster and grabbed it, and I started cleaning it off because it had stuff on there, and I turned right to Ezekiel 33, and it said the Watchman, and they were protectors of Israel. So that gave me the vision, and it gave me, it was like God was revealing, because at that time I was really going through a lot. I'm like, God, why am I here? Like, why am I sitting in this church parking lot? And God revealed who He called me to be. And, that base comes from my childhood. I believe God had a special calling for me. Then I grew up in a very abusive household. So my mother was abused by a man, and I watched the man stop hitting on her and start hitting on me. And at this time, I would get locked in basements and different things. And how I knew Jesus was my mother told me to call on Jesus while I was getting locked away in basements and closets. And just a bunch of crazy stuff happened to me in my childhood. But at the age of 13 was a game changer, because at 13, um, at 12, let's take to 12. At 12, he broke my shoulder and gave me concussions. Yeah, and hospitalized me. And at the time, I don't think domestic violence was that huge back then. He got arrested, but he got out of jail. But some series of things happened to me that changed my life. So
Wow.
me and my mother's in the hospital, and she said, "I got your father on the phone. Like, this is my real father." Now I'm 12, about to be 13. I never met my dad before, and so the first time hearing him on the phone, he like, "Man, son, I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm coming, and I got your back." So it was kind of like I'm celebrating, like, yes, you know what I mean? Like Superman on the way. My dad's on the way to revenge me. And so I'm like excited. I'm waiting on him to come to the hospital that day, because it's like a 2 hour drive from Cleveland to Columbus. So he didn't come that day. And I was in the hospital for a few days, and he never showed up. And weeks turned to months, and no calls, no show. So that rejection hit me at a young age, and then months went by. My shoulder is starting to heal, coming out the cast. I mean, out the splint, and my mom brings the same man that abused me back into the house. And I never
What?
forget, he came, he wanted to apologize to me. And, I'm looking at my mom like scared. So I climbed out the window that night when she moved back in, and I ran away from home.
Yeah.
And I ran into, at the time, they were called the Black Gangster Disciples, and then they switched over to Gangster Disciples. But I ran into them, and those guys gave me protection, safety, a family. It wasn't for real. It came with a lot of stuff that I didn't know that I would have, said no, thank you, if they had broke it down to me. But at the time, running away from home and being 13, I'm scared. I mean, I just was watching
Yeah.
cartoons. I don't know nothing about the streets. So them taking me under their wing, making me a lookout, and giving me a few dollars until I actually built and worked my way up into the organization. Before I knew it, I was one of
Wow.
those guys in leadership. Yeah. And that
Wow.
started the the journey, just the gangs and different stuff. But God entered into my life, and it was a big change later on.
Wow. That is huge. That is really huge.
Mhm.
And I,
Yeah.
I apologize that you had to go through that.
Yeah.
How was it in school with all of that going on at home?
Yeah. So the crazy thing about it was, once I joined the gang, I became, so I found out this about myself. as a man, anything that I get touch or get into, I'm 100% committed. So I was 100% committed to the Gangster Disciples at the time. So it wasn't no school for me. I was always running with the older guys, hanging out, doing stuff, and started committing robberies with them at a very young age, and trying to work my way over there. So school wasn't even an option for me. Matter of fact, I got arrested and charged me as an adult for coming back up to the school with a gun and had a little cocktail. But I used to do some stupid stuff when I was young. My teenage years, I was very, very violent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Emotional.
Yeah.
And it was because not having a father and what happened to me, I had a lot of rage and anger in me. So it was easy for them to send me to do something. You know what I mean? And I would do it. So at that time in my life, and that's what the chapter of my life I call weep. You know what I mean? Because the first time a church asked me to tell my testimony, I just started crying. I just
Oh.
broke down on the stage and they looking at me like, and I had to relive what I went through as a child. No Christmases, no birthdays, barely eating. It's the story of a lot of people in the neighborhood, but I caught a lot of beatings with it too. And then I watched my mom get beat a lot. So, I'm like, "Ugh," you know what I'm saying? But I can't help mom. You know what I'm saying? So I had to leave her and I felt bad leaving her. But and then again, when I saw her brought him in the house, I was like, it is what it is. I'm out of here. So the streets taught me a hardcore lesson. And being so my juvenile, my teenage year, I spent in and out of juvenile. So I'd be 6 months in, 6 months out. Then they'll ship me off to some military boot camp program. Then I'll come back and go through some outreach program and then come right back to the streets and go. It was like a cycle, revolving door. It wasn't until all the stuff, and I don't like to give the enemy any glory and talk about all the stuff that I did, like, within the gangs, but I done enough bad stuff where I needed to get out of Cleveland. And
Mhm.
I'll never forget, I was running with the gun in my hand, going down the street, and a pastor was on the van and he slammed on the brakes. He almost hit me. It was snowing, but he recognized me, pulled past me. I thought it was somebody coming for me, so I turned around with the gun. He was like, "Boy, I almost I raised you." I'm looking. I'm like, "Oh, that's Pastor Williams." So I went around to the van. He's like, "Man, what you doing?" I said, I was like, "I don't know, sir. Like, my life is, you know what I mean?" He was like, "Let me tell you something, man." He said, "You need to go to Atlanta, Georgia with your mama and your grandma." And I didn't even know they was down there. I said, "They in Atlanta, Georgia?" He said, "Yeah, you need to go to Atlanta, Georgia." He said, "Matter of fact, come with me." I went to church. He called, bought me a bus ticket, sent me. Now I left all my stuff, went down there.
Wow.
Yeah, so when I get to Atlanta, it was like this reunion, you know what I mean, with my mother. But then I had siblings too, brother and sister. And my brother was kind of into the game down here in Atlanta. So by me not being saved yet, I just kind of slid in
Mhm.
with him and started
Mhm.
moving in the direction with him
Mhm.
and started getting in trouble in Georgia, catching a couple cases and different stupid stuff. But finally, get to the kingdom side of things. It was a guy named Greg Washington who was originally a part of the Miami Boys when they had came down here, and he was serving time and he got out, and his mother stayed next door to where my mother was staying. And it was so much traffic over there in that neighborhood on HE Homes that, I mean, it was like you pull up, it's like 50, 60 guys out there, that he was scared that probation may think he tied into that and send him back. So he came, was talking to the guys that like, "You got to talk to Chief, you got to talk to me." And so me and him had a conversation, and he started talking about Christ. And it took me to my childhood when I was locked in that basement called on Jesus. And I just broke down to start crying. This my season of weeping. I said, "Man, I'm tired of this life." He said, "Let me take you to the City of Refuge." And at the time, City of Refuge wasn't as big as it was now. It was just an empty building. They was passing out food and stuff. So I came, me and Greg talked to him. I told him my testimony. And instantly they was like, "All right, come on, tell your story, tell your story." And so I started traveling with them, telling my testimony. And then
Yeah.
during telling my testimony, that's when the frustration would build because I'm like, I see everybody building, making money, being promoted, moving into pastors and moving to different positions. And I'm like, God, like, why I can't be a pastor? Or why I can't? Here it is. I'm almost 10 years in now with these guys. Why I can't do it?
Whoa.
I'm just serving. I ended up moving into the church, you know what I mean, to kind of go through. I went through like a spiritual training, discipleship program, the whole
Okay.
nine, where I was walk away from the streets and live inside the church and be a steward in the church. And I was like, why I ain't moving, God? Why I ain't moving? But then I understand now that God had me to be in a season of waiting. And what
Okay.
God see, when God builds you up, God don't build you from the top down. That's how the world be, where you can see all the jewels, the fruit, and everything. God builds you from the bottom up because He wants you to be rooted deep in Him.
Yes.
So God was
Yes.
building my roots, so I had a season of waiting. And here's the powerful thing about that waiting. It's because I was like, God, man, why I ain't moving? And the Holy Spirit spoke to me, and He said, because you need to call Big Ivan. I said, call Big Ivan. I said, man, if I saw Big Ivan, man, I'm a relapse in the kingdom. I'm coming for him because I couldn't run into him in my childhood. He disappeared when I became older. He said, you gotta call your stepfather. And I said, I don't even know how to get in touch with him. Yes, you do. He put my sister and brother. So I called my sister. I said, Eric, I said, this is gonna sound crazy, but I said, I need to talk to your dad. And she was like, what? I said, I need to talk to your dad. She said, well, you know what? I'm at the hospital with him right now. So I'm like,
Wow.
really? So when she gave him the phone, I kind of geared up for it. Like, yeah, I'm finna say something. You know what I mean, to buddy? But I felt like that kid again. You know what I'm saying? That fear almost grabbed me again. So I got on the phone like, hello. You know what I'm saying? And he just before I could say, he like, Ryan, I've been waiting on this moment all my life. It's kind of touchy
Mm,
right now because he said, I'm sorry for everything I did to you. Will you forgive me? And I'm gonna tell you something, man. That set me free. You know what I'm saying? When I tell you, when you're hurt by somebody
yeah.
and you know what I'm saying, and they ask you, that's why I say you can't hold on to forget. I'm sorry, this was a
Mm.
moment, man.
No.
But
Yes.
he
Yes.
he he said, "Will you forgive me?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I think deep down inside, I wanted to hear that all my life, but just didn't know it. And as soon as he did that, that's when I started to move. I took off because that load was off. I started leading youth groups and going out to speak in different communities, speaking different detention centers, and traveling to different like football stadiums and different places, telling my story. And I was moving around. You know what I mean? And God had gave me that assignment to tell my testimony and show His grace and mercy and what He
Yeah.
could do. And and then through that season of frustration, I told you when I threw my Bible, I had saw that Watchman. And God said to me, He said, you remember that W, that Watchman symbol? And I was already kind of somewhat doing security. He said, start the business. And I promise you,
Mm,
I started in 2016. And by 2017, we had every shelter you can think about in Atlanta, Georgia, from Gateway, United Way, City of Refuge, Crossroad, all the big ones. We had about 8 Chick-fil-A's. We had all the Mercy Cares. I got up to like 70 employees. We started, when God, so this was my stage of worship. You know what I mean? I wept. I waited, and now I'm in the season of worship because I'm thanking God, like, oh my God, thank you, Lord, for blessing me. And my hands in the air, my hands is telling my story, all the pain and stuff that I had went through, and I'm
yeah.
celebrating in the kingdom because God had gave me a way that I can start bringing in brothers in. Because when you speak to a brother about God, and he like, all right, man, but I got bills to pay. I was able to talk to him and say, look, why don't you work for me? And we'll walk together. So a lot of brothers start coming. I went and shut down I got assigned by, I think it was Patrick Labatt. He went through Crossroads to go in and close down the worst shelter in Georgia, Peachtree and Pine. And this was bad. But I started training the men up there and started employing them. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like giving them chances because I'm like, they humans too. These men just need jobs. And
that's it.
so through City of Refuge and Crossroads, I think I probably employed over 200 men and women. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Within that year, yeah. If not with my company, different other companies that I had partnered
Yeah.
with and start building, you know what I mean? And God started blessing my life, and I just want to just share it now, you know what I mean? And just, how you go from that, being counted out. People used to predict when I was gonna die. Like, he's not gonna make it past 16. He's not gonna make it past 20. He's not gonna make it past 21. You know what I mean? And here I am, a business owner. I couldn't believe it neither. I'm like, I own a business. I got an office. I got, you know what I mean? And people are coming in to seeing me. It was like weird, but you know what I mean? Like, I was thankful. You know what I mean? I was very grateful, until that season of war came, those attacks. But because so the thing is, I believe that you can't war for the kingdom until you can win the battle first from within, the battle of the mind. You have to win
Yeah.
that battle first. You got to get rid of all the sin and all the different things that you're doing so you can
Yeah.
be a stand up guy and war for the kingdom. So when the
Yeah.
enemy doubled back to come and see me, I had the shield of righteousness. I was ready for him because
Yeah.
I knew people was going to attack me because of my background. I mean, I started, selling drugs at 13, but I was using drugs too. You know what I mean? So it built up. You know what I mean? From the weed to the cocaine to the PCP, different things. So when people looked at me, they was like gang member, drug seller, drug addict. They just had their way of
Yeah.
categorize me, because it's like your name will go places you'll never go. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So people could watch this and be talking about me. Let's see, a place I ain't never been to, Arizona. You know what I mean? So they could be saying, "Hey, we saw that show," and talking about me and you. How are they going to talk about us? So that's why we always got to represent ourselves well. But other people will see me from the past and assume I still was with it, but like, nah, I'm transformed. Like, it's all about the kingdom now. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this.
Mm,
Two things that just came to my mind.
mm.
Uh, when it comes to being in a gang, don't you have to be like jumped in and jumped out, or does
Yeah,
that not?
yeah. So my initiation with the disciples, and I'll never forget it because it was crazy because I just came out of a home getting my butt kicked, and they
Right.
formed this little circle around me, and they sent 6 different dudes at different times to just gladly I had to fight them. And then once they demolished me, you know what I mean? Because I didn't know nothing. They picked me
Right.
up and did the little G up my back and said the little prayer over my head, and they was like, "All right, you got heart, you got heart." And it's like, "Now we're gonna put in that work." And it's like, "What is work?" So I went through those stages, you know what I'm saying, of proving myself to them. But like they changed the movement from gangster disciples to growth and development. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And I'd be like, well, I am the example of growth and development because I growth and I developed and I moved on. So
Yeah.
anytime somebody be like, "Are you still?" And I'm covered. I mean, I got stars and tattoos all over me, but those scars now are like medals of honor. These are like medals from the battlefield. When I talk to the youth, like, I was there. That's why I'm
Yes.
telling you, they ain't had no pension plan, no retirement, no nothing for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, these is you on your own when you get my age, when you can't jump the fence or run the pack no more, or can't defend, you on your own. You know what I'm saying? Like, your rep may be out there, but you're on your own. So I'm able to go out there and talk to them. That's why I kept it. But I don't have this fear. So when I walked away from them, and here's a crazy thing about it. I gotta share this. So the church was telling me I wasn't ready to speak because I do a lot of devotions on TikTok. 'Cause I'm excited about what God did for me, so I can't hold it in. And they
Right.
like, you're not ready to speak yet. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta go. I'm like, but I got down in my spirit and I didn't post that next day. One of the guys off the 130th, I stayed on 123rd, 6th Ward, GD. He was a crip on 130th. He hit me on the video call, FaceTime Messenger. I'm looking like, what did he want? So I asked him, like, what's up? He like, hey, man. He like, I don't believe in God and Jesus. But he like, you better post, man. Why you ain't post this morning? He was looking forward to my post. And I'm
Oh, so
talking about love God, sir. I'm talking about Christ. He wanted to see my post. You know what I'm
sweet.
saying? So I'm his go-to, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, when times, because I'm always posting inspirational stuff. I just speak from the heart. And dude told me this, and this was bigger than any pastor said. He said, Rob, man, I'm proud of you, man. I said, what you mean? He said, man, we all proud because we saw where you came from. You was here with us, and
Mhm.
now look at what you're doing. And some of them I took with me and hired them, the ones that I could. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they on the sideline quietly cheered me on. So I don't have that fear of, blood in, blood out. Nah. I travel
Mhm.
everywhere with this thing and I speak about the kingdom, and if something
Yeah,
happens to me, I know where I'm going. You get what I'm saying?
that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So it's
So
it's no fear.
my other question is, since you mentioned that you took drugs, how did you wean off of them?
That's a good question because I never went to a drug rehab or drug
Okay.
facility. So here's the thing, man. I jumped off the porch real early. So the things I never forget, one of my big homies, I don't know if I should say his name, but anyway, I was 13. He gave me a little snub nose 38. And he telling me all this stuff he gonna do. Like give me a whole plan. Like we gonna pull around the corner. This guy gonna be here. You coming around here. Like when you're on the ground, like doing football plays, like with sticks,
Right.
like drawing them, y'all gonna be over here, and I'm shaking. You know what I'm saying? Like shaking the gun. And one of the guys grabbed me, like, what's wrong with this little dude? Like, what's up, man? Like, he like, I got him. So he had me hit he dipped this cigarette. I didn't even know what it was, some liquid. I found out later, PCP, Sherm. And when I
Right.
hit it, I turned into a monster. You know what I
Wow.
mean? So I started using drugs to do the dumb stuff that they wanted me to do until I didn't really need them no more. The cocaine habit came through with testing the dope. Like we're testing the dope and then trying to stay up all night to hustle. So hitting a little bump and then and there. And so I would do it, but I never was the guy
Yeah.
that climbed in somebody's window and took their TV. You know what I'm saying? It was as needed. But it
I
was through the years, you know what I mean? So I guess some people would say I was a functional addict, but
mhm.
the Bible
Yeah.
says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. The Greek
Yes.
word metanoia, you know what I mean? And so that's something that I say in my head, like metanoia, man, like the change of my mind. And I use different stuff like that. So when I got filled with the Holy Spirit, that taste left. You know what I mean? When I started doing kingdom things, the desire to do street things wasn't even there no more. Matter of fact, I started ministering to the guys that was on the drugs. You know what I mean? Because it reminds me of a devotion that I actually really did, and it just hit my spirit just now again. It's like Cain sold his birthright for a bowl of soup. If you think
Mm.
about that, Cain came from Abraham. Abraham was a friend of God. Abraham would have probably been a billionaire. You know what I'm saying? Abraham had the bag and it passed on. So Cain was a part of that, receiving that blessing. That's why Jacob wanted it so bad. And so anytime I see, and I'm not saying I don't get into sin or something, we all fall short. But anytime I see something come, I tell myself, don't trade your blessing away for that bowl of soup. He traded his birthright for the bowl of soup. I'm not going to trade the promise God that gave me or the blessing or this life God has allowed me to be a steward of for no bowl of soup, for no sin, for no perversion, for no lust, for no drugs, none of that stuff. I'm not going to trade it in for that because what he has given me, I'm honored. You get what I'm saying? So it's at a point sometimes you get there in your walk where it's like, no, I'm honored. What he did right here, like I can't, you know what I'm saying, go back on him. That's why he said he hated Cain in the Bible. You know what I mean? Because he in the Hebrews he said he was godless because he traded
Mm.
away God's blessing. It's almost like your child giving away his life inheritance for a cup of coffee. You know what I'm saying? It means like you're like, what did you just do, boy? You know what I'm saying? It's like, what? You know what I'm saying? And that could move separation between y'all. Like, nah, I ain't feeling that. I worked too
Yeah.
hard for that. So you get what I'm
That's right.
saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Wow. So, wow, this is like really an eye opener for me. How do you um how do you teach inspire the youth, or do you inspire the youth as
I,
well?
I do. I do. So I volunteer my services for security in schools. And I always go and hang out and visit. I didn't coach basketball. I did a little bit of everything in the schools, but I always had this Bible study. And so this is what
Oh,
I do. So I don't know, the kids are addicted to American Deli. So I would tell everybody, like, listen, I need a scripture from everybody. Stand up, give me the whole. And I got footage. I'll send you, do the Bible verse and stuff like that. And they would do it, and then I would buy wings for everybody on Friday, and they would eat, and they want wings that next weekend. But what happened was, like the third weekend, what I mean? I saw them just talking about scriptures, like, hey, I'm finna get in that James. You know what I mean? Like they was preparing to get in the word so they can get wings. And before they know it, I kind of winged them off the wings. You know what I mean? And say, let's do something bigger. What if I because I go out a lot of times, like I go out on Edge, I go a little bit everywhere and just serve meals in the community, just hang out, chill with the guys. Like if you're gonna serve somebody, you need to know their name. You know what I mean? Get to know them. You know what I'm saying? It's like you bringing somebody to God to lead them to Christ, and you don't know nothing about them. You're supposed to be able to
yes,
go to the Father and say, "I vouch for this guy." Because we got a relationship. He ready to meet Christ. So I go out and take the kids, and they introduce themselves. They share their scriptures with the people. Now they look forward to going to talk to the people in the community. They like, man, the wings ain't it no more. Like, I want to go out here and share this message because they see the bigger picture. Christ,
beautiful.
two things he told you: love God, and I always say love your neighbor, but I always say love God, serve others. Because if you love your neighbor, you're gonna serve them. People respond to love through action. You know what I mean? So if I say I love you, you're gonna be like, okay, stop saying I need to see this love. So action. That's why I say we gotta serve one another. So just
Yes.
teaching them to serve it. Yeah, yeah,
So, you and I are going to work on your book. Now,
yeah.
what is inspiring you to write a book?
What's inspired me to write a book is because I want to tell a lot of people that come from those dark places, that been abused, that been in gangs and have numbers. I mean, I've been to jail several times, that's been down the road and done time, that think that life is over and they just have to settle for the hood. I know so many guys that ain't left the neighborhood. I go back, I'm like, you still out here? He like, man, ain't nothing for me. So I wanted to inspire them, not saying I'm, something great, but it's like I want them to be like, yo, if that dude wrote a book, if that dude could start a business, I know I'm finna get to it. You know what I'm saying? Because he was in the gutter with us. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying? He passed the burner with her. He held the tools and did everything with him. You know what I mean?
yes.
So if they see me, and I had to isolate so I can elevate myself. And so I want them to
Mm,
see the story, but I want them to see the journey that I had to take to, but also be aware because, you can get with church and be spiritually abused too. You know what I
yes,
mean? And so I talk about being careful, being used, you know what I mean? Because that can happen too. And it can actually tear you down instead of
yes.
building you up. Because you'll start looking. Because I hit a point one time, I was like, God, you gonna let me go out like this? Everybody reaping the benefits off of my story, my tears, you know what I mean? My back, and I'm over here trying to figure this thing out. So I got frustrated. But then I was reminded by that scripture: seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all shall be added.
Mm,
And that's where that faith. So I was like, you know what? I had to block it and just keep pushing it. God, He blesses me daily. But I want them to see that, against all odds, we the underdogs. We can come back and do
yes,
great things and warn people. Like the Watchman, we sound the alarm. We see it
yes,
coming. I see it coming a mile away, brother. You don't need to go that way. I saw it. You know what I'm saying? So I want to inspire people to tell their testimony. You know what I mean?
mm,
Because if you come out of that and you get to a point where you're talking about the Father, the Most High, like your story is those scars on the battlefield is medals of honor. And guess what you did?
mm,
You survived. See, people don't understand
yes,
that we're not meant to be in the army of the Lord. For He got angels to fight. He want us to survive. You know why? Because when we go back into that battlefield and identify the people with the same stuff that we got, I know who to scoop up, throw them my show. Come on, I've been there too. And we just bring them out, bring them to Christ. We go in, grab the wounded. That's what I do. I go in and grab the wounded, drag them out, get them some help, get them to the ER, get them to Christ. You know what I mean? So He can revive them, He can relieve them, He can save them. You know what I mean? So that's what we have to do. I've survived so much. I can sit back and
yes,
trade war stories with everybody. I survived. I didn't
yes,
survive to do more work for the enemy. I
That's right.
survived to tell my story and do work for the kingdom and sit there with
Yeah,
that same dude with his head down, like, man, I did this drug. I can't do it. Me too. What's
yep.
next? You know what I mean? Like, what we doing?
Exactly.
You want to know how I got there? You know what I'm saying? It's like we have to find the person, you know what I'm saying, identify the problem, and then give them the
Yeah.
prescription. Christ. You know what I'm saying?
Woo!
Person, problem, prescription. You know what I'm saying? And that's my vision, that's my journey, and that's how I move. Because I'm thankful to be alive. I shouldn't be I shouldn't be here. I can't tell you how many life and death experience I done had, but I shouldn't be here. You know,
Well, it's
so yeah.
definitely going to be in the book. So we are
Uh,
definitely going to get started on getting your book published. I'm
yeah.
just so
Yeah.
amazed at all the things that you have overcome, but
Mhm.
God is not going to put on you anything that you can't handle.
Right.
And as I always say, leaders have to be tested. There's nobody
Hmm.
given a silver spoon and can
Yeah.
withstand what you went through. So we have to
Right.
look
Right.
at the lessons in life and see why
Right.
we are given those. So I really enjoyed this conversation. In
Oh,
closing, do you have any closing words that you would like to leave the viewers and listeners?
Um, I really want to. My biggest thing is love God, serve others, born again activity. We have to be born again, and we have to activate. But I want to challenge the people to go out there. There's a generation that has a name now. You know what I'm saying? They call them the YNs. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like the younger generation is the YNs. They have been given a name, and that name has been given to them by the enemy himself. And when you hear the
woo,
word YN, you turn away from them and you go about your business. You don't want no dealings with them. But we have
that's
to
right.
understand, as the body of Christ, this is the next generation. Ministry don't
Yeah,
stop with us. When your church closed or God call you home, Christianity ain't over. The fight ain't over. Believers ain't over. You have
yeah,
to bring these babies along, because this is the next generation to carry the torch.
yeah,
And I said
yeah.
these babies are like broken arrows, but these arrows can be put together. And what we got to do, I said, you got to always aim that arrow in the right direction. Whatever you
Yeah,
release it, that's where it's gonna go. So we gotta release these children in the right direction. I don't care why in, you can call it whatever. I'm going, and that's what I've been going. But my biggest thing, they always had these TikTok challenges. I challenge somebody, man, women of God, men of God, adopt a child outside of your home, not physically, like, paperwork. Just invite them over, start pointing. The bad ones, the ones they call the YNs. Just
yeah,
spend time with them, man. You know what I mean? You be surprised, man. Them dudes ready to put the guns down and blend in with a
right.
normal family. They want to go to the movie. I always wanted to be a kid, but I grew up too fast. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget. We took the kids on a youth trip to camp. I had never been to camp in my life. I'm a grown man. I had never been to
Wow.
camp, and I saw it on TV growing up. I always wanted to go to them little camps where you ride the bus and go in the woods. So I was really like a kid, a camper. And so the kids snuck out and started knocking on people's doors. And I seen them and I joined in. I'm knocking and running in the little, that the Bible called them little stiff necks. They like, yeah, he's out there, immature, knocking on doors. And I was like, hey, you telling me, but the pastor, he understood. He said, that man didn't even have a childhood. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And they started going knocking on doors, and eventually everybody out there started playing around. You know what I'm saying? Let's be a kid with children of God. I know I didn't have it. So when I look at them, a lot of them have to grow up too fast. They mama smoking dope. The drug epidemic is crazy now. Mama on drug. Dad, it's a fatherless generation. Dad ain't even nowhere in play. So they got to man up. They can't go get a six-figure job. So what they do? They grab that tool and they get active. And we get scared, but we got to get in there and be like, I was there. Let me give you some
Yeah.
different, ways. Let me get in there with you. You just
Yeah.
got to, I don't know, we just got to jump in that battlefield. But that would be my thing, man. Adopt some spiritual sons and daughters. Get in there, man.
Wow.
Pull them in. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I really
Yeah.
enjoyed the
I enjoyed this. I
conversation with
thank
you.
you for having me.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course. And I would love for you to come back later and
Mm.
we could talk about your book and anything else
Awesome.
that's
Awesome.
going on in your world. Is that cool? All
Yes,
right.
ma'am. I would
Well,
love
thank you
to.
so much for being here. And I look forward to seeing you again. Okay. All
All
right.
right. Thank you.
Peace.
All right. Yeah.
All right, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. I truly did. I mean, he is definitely, he's gone through it and he's come out a winner. And make sure that you check out, if you need security, make sure you go to the website Watchman Security Safety Advocates.com. Thank you all again for joining us on Beyond Boardroom Business. Again, I am your host, Coach Stephanie. And as always, I look forward to seeing you every Thursday night, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until the next time, stay prayerful, stay powerful, and stay present. Peace.